A big part of what the Cleveland Browns want to do in 2023 is the tight ends. We'll talk about David Njoku and his big-time contract, Harrison Bryant, and is he ready to go to make a step? And if the tight end position is going to be as more impactful as it was a few years ago under Kevin Stefanski. We'll talk about it all next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast. Garrett and I could not be more thrilled with the sport here, whether it is your favorite podcast app. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the Locked On Browns podcast or YouTube. Over 2,200 subscribers now. Please, keep those numbers coming. We appreciate everybody who's kind of made the jump here just to get, different avenue into your daily dose of Locked On Browns content. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Browns listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement. Make sure to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Your host, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Of course, the Barbershop 92.3 The Fan, Mr. Garrett Bush, at GBush91. Continuing here with the 2022 Browns training camp preview. As we've told you, we're going to push the quarterback episode back as far as we can here until we have a little more concrete evidence and a little bit more to work with the room and the way it'll be structured for the 2022 season. Today, we're going to get in the tight end room. And if you heard in the open, I think Garrett made a good point here. If you look at the way this tight end room was constructed over the last 2 years, Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, the team moved on from Austin Hooper, committed here to David Njoku for the long term, Harrison Bryant in year 3. And then after that, the room, it's got a lot of question marks. There was some thought maybe of a player like Kyle Rudolph coming in. Kyle Rudolph signed yesterday with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The thought there was obviously with Rudolph spending time in Minnesota with Kevin Stefanski over the last few years. Previous time when Kevin Stefanski was there with Minnesota. With David Njoku, and this is kind of where it all starts. When the Browns, this current regime took over in 2020, David Njoku was a player they were enamored with, but a player they essentially weren't sure of. 2019 was a lost season for David Njoku. 2020, in the beginning, David Njoku was not much of a factor for this team. The Browns wanted him to develop more as a blocker. They wanted him to be a full-time, full-service tight end. And to David Njoku's credit, early in the 2020 season, a lot of hard work was put in. The benefits started to show as David Njoku played more, became a solid blocker, became very, very active in the receiving game, was probably their top tight end going down the stretch in the 2020 season. You get to 2021, and it was kind of an interesting spot here as, Austin Hooper's play, just never met what the Browns were hoping for when they had signed him to his free agent contract. It was obvious David Njoku was the best tight end on the roster, so you had this odd situation of a player who had no contract after last year versus the guy that you paid big money to. Browns decided to part ways with Austin Hooper after the 2021 season. Originally tagged David Njoku, now reached a long-term contract with David Njoku. But, the questions remain there. And look, until you have proof, there's going to be questions. David Njoku, we all think with a bigger opportunity, with a bigger piece of the pie, you're going to see a higher production standpoint from David Njoku. But the Browns did make this commitment, and a lot of it was based on the work that David Njoku has put in, becoming a better blocker, becoming a more all-around tight end. I think the Browns are confident the receiving ability is there, as much as they choose to use it. But it is interesting, Garrett, is, how much will the tight ends be a factor of this team as much as they were in the beginning 2 years of the Stefanski era. But a lot of this comes down to it. And, this will be the biggest question, of the tight end room for the season is, will David Njoku give you a return on the heavy investment that the Browns have put into him?
I think that's the real big question that a lot of people are asking. I think it will be something that pays off for the Cleveland Browns, and I'll tell you why. When you're looking at David Njoku and what they're paying him for, right? They're projecting some things out here a little bit. They're projecting what he can be with a franchise quarterback like Deshaun Watson. He has all of the tools. He has all of the traits. And one of the things that people you hear around the league is there is a shortage of playmakers at tight end. You see a guy like Kyle Rudolph who has definitely was never really a really big burner. He really never really got too much separation on linebackers and safeties. A guy like that that's been in the league who's had some injuries, he's still in the mix for a lot of teams because tight ends don't grow on trees. It's a position that you can utilize as a playmaker on the field. You can use mismatches with that. And the Cleveland Browns were very excited to have a guy like David Njoku with his skill set. There's only a few guys in the league that can do what he does physically in terms of his leaping ability, speed, athleticism, and just a mismatch nightmare. So what they're doing is kind of projecting it a little bit. Like, hey, we know David hasn't had the production here in the past, but we're projecting it forward. And I've always talked about it in terms of salary cap, right? A lot of people get into the cap stuff, and I just think I think a lot of times people try to be way more smarter than that we need to be. Yes, I know that he's paid like a top 5 tight end, but I always give you this question: what's your opportunity cost, right? If you can get, do you have another guy you can go out that has the same skill set, that knows your playbook, that has been in the system, and that you know what he's good at and what he's bad at. Do you have a guy like that out there with as much upside as David Njoku? No, there's not. So yes, you could have you said, hey, let's franchise him, bring him back a little bit or do whatever. The Browns are saying, look, we got a quarterback that's here. We want to give our quarterbacks that's already in our system the best opportunity to succeed. What best way to have a guy succeed? And by having a guy that's already here and knows what the game plan is. So you're not coming back in expecting another tight end to learn the playbook. You might not even know if he's injured or whether or not he has hands. You got to figure out throughout the season what best routes work for him, what different things you can run with him. And you go through all those mental gymnastics when you could have kept David Njoku and just hit the ground running. So for me, the contract to me means that the Cleveland Browns are going to utilize him more. I also believe the contract is one of the determining factors as to why they didn't go out and grab another receiver, because they figured David Njoku is going to be a highly targeted guy for them. We'll talk about Bryant coming up in the next section, but you forget we're going to use the tight ends a lot. Tight ends will get targets. And I think David Njoku, they would love David Njoku to be somewhere in that second to third targeted guy on the team, following Amari Cooper, and get at least 8 touchdowns, somewhere between 7 and 8 touchdowns, especially in the red zone. And that's what I think the thought process is when giving David Njoku a contract.
The thing with David, and I think you eloquently put it well, is the athletic ability and the gifts are there. Talking, top freaks at the position in the NFL as far as their athleticism and their God-given abilities. David Njoku certainly is right at the top of that list. One thing I think is now, the salary cap obviously a little different here than it was the last couple of years, and certainly when they gave the contract to Austin Hooper, that they did. So you got to figure there is some inflation, to that due to, more cap money. Are you thinking you can get David Njoku to at least give you what Austin Hooper has the last couple of years? I think the Browns truly believe that he can give you what Austin Hooper gave you the last few years, given those amount of opportunities. The ability, and the fact what he can do in the middle of the field. Linebackers can't run with him. Safeties are too small. So he does create mismatch nightmares. He's been very, very good at that, basically skinny post run from the tight end position. He can get behind the linebackers, get in front of the safeties, and, there's not much you can do about it. Is anybody expecting that David Njoku is going to give you production in the realm of players like Travis Kelce? No, that's not going to happen. It's probably not realistic. This team and this offensive passing scheme is a lot more balanced than that. But David, you should see legitimate, steps up in his game. I think, thinking that he's going to have over 50 receptions, north of 600 yards, maybe 7, 8 touchdowns is a realistic, what you are expecting from David Njoku now. And certainly, within reason, seeing exactly what the Browns have, paid him. It's, even solid blocker, it's not going to warrant the money that he's gotten. It's going to be the fact that he is going to have to step up production-wise here in this offense. There's no way around it. This is what the Browns are expecting. I think the Browns are expecting, what they're saying is we were comfortable with paying a top tight end good money. And the way it's shifted here is that we believe David Njoku can do more than what Austin Hooper did for us. And I think that's what the Browns are looking for. And a lot of eyes are going to be on 85 this year. Been here 5 seasons, has all the gifts in the world. It's just going to be a question of giving him, more, week in, week out, more opportunities to make plays. And I think Browns are confident they're going to get a return on that investment. We're going to continue here. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush. We are going to get to Mr. Harrison Bryant here. And again, Garrett's point probably rings true here. Is the tight end, is it going to be the group that is part like it has been in the past couple seasons? Or is it just going to be a little more limited because, maybe now you like a little bit more what you have at the wide receiver position? We're going to get to all that. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions? Is your vehicle an EX or an LX, V6 or a V6 turbo? And wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only manufacturer their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. It's a family-owned business. It's been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low, and they are for every customer. Go to rockauto.com today. Use the site. Find the solution for your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know the folks at the Locked On Podcast Network sent you their way. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Back at it on Locked On Browns podcast. I want to salute everybody out there for holding this down, man. We're quickly becoming one of the best and most viewed and most subscribed to channel on the Locked On Network. We want to thank you for continuing to make Locked On Browns your first listen of the day. G. Bush in the building, Jeff Lloyd in the building. We've talked about a lot of this all the time, man. We've talked about the tight ends, talked about whether or not they're going to be a big part of this team. And we always have mentioned this guy a little bit later. Harrison Bryant, when you talk about what he means. Now, just to give you a perspective, Harrison Bryant coming out of Florida, Florida Atlantic was one of the guys that won the Mackey Award, best tight end in college football. Just go back and look at his Ohio State tape. He played well against Ohio State. And he played well in that game at the Horseshoe. So he's played against some top-notch programs in college, came into with the Cleveland Browns, and he's shown pretty much the same amount of production the first couple of years. As a guy who's always been the second or third tight end on the roster, he's done some good things, but now with Austin Hooper not being in the program anymore, we believe that, Bryant is going to be a guy that's going to be receiving some targets, right? A guy that, is good with just fair hands, catching the ball. I would like to see him still continue to catch the ball and not drop any balls, right? I would like to see him improve run after catch. And I think it's going to be a little bit easier with Deshaun Watson, who throws a really nice football in terms of a catchable ball, a ball that he knows how to take some stuff off like a great pitcher would do. And, for Bryant, I'm looking for him taking a step up, right? He's going to have more reps. He's going to get more reps in this offense. And I would like to see him be able to step his game up and be able to, up his production a little bit. It's yet to be seen whether or not how they're going to utilize the tight ends, because you got to think about it like this now. There's going to be a lot of different things in the packages that we haven't seen. 5 wide. They ran 5 wide, but it wasn't really a vertical 5 wide. It was just some quick little hitches and some quick stuff, not shot plays in the 5 wide with Baker Mayfield. RPO is going to be run pass option is going to be in the playbook a lot. We already know Kevin Stefanski will keep one thing in. He loves his tight end screens. Oh my goodness, he loves the tight end screens. He'll run it in the middle of the field. He'll run it on third down, first down, all the above. He loves the tight end screen. So we'll see how big of a focal point the tight ends will be this year. Will they go with a lot of 13 personnel? I don't think they'll be as heavy on 13. I think you'll see more 11 personnel, myself, and so less of 12 and less of 13. We talked a little bit about with the running backs in the fullback position. I think that position will be minimized a little bit. So we'll see how this works. But Harrison Bryant is another solid individual, solid tight end, can block, can catch, he can do a lot of different things. And I think he'll be a contributing factor this year. What do you think?
The thing with Harrison Bryant, and now as we go into year 3, you go through his first 2 years, he was more targeted as a rookie, 38 targets. I think it was 24 receptions last year, 28 targets, 21 receptions. That's actually a great percentage on targets versus receptions. Both seasons in 230 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns. So basically his first 2 years have kind of been mirror images of each other. There's times where you watch Harrison Bryant and you think there is more there as a receiver. Last year, we all saw how, things kind of completely unraveled. So it's really difficult with, the way the quarterback play went last year to evaluate some of the guys that are still on this roster and what their play was last year. I mean, we all know there were issues with the play. There were certainly issues behind the scenes. But with Harrison Bryant, and again, now, anything you saw from Austin Hooper the last 2 years in a much more limited role, is it hard to believe that, Harrison Bryant can't give you that? I mean, Austin Hooper disappointed for 2 years while he was here. And, look, I mean, everybody praises Andrew Berry for the work he does. And look, every GM, there's a miss. There's a move, that comes back to bite you, backfires. Austin Hooper was certainly one of those moves. It never worked out for the Browns the way they had intended. So now if you're talking maybe taking Harrison Bryant, giving him a little bit more involvement in the offense. And one thing you can do with Harrison Bryant, because size-wise, he's not necessarily a true tight end, the way he is built. There were times last year, I know the Houston Texans game had a long reception, 40 yards, where he split out wide. 6'4", 6'5", and we've talked about this, and we talked about it yesterday. Garrett is one thing that maybe is lacking within the Browns wide receiver room is size. You can kind of maybe do this with Harrison Bryant. 6'4", 6'5", has experience. Originally he was a wide receiver that morphed into being a tight end in college. But the opportunity is there. And the question's going to be, though, is how much of the factor is it going to be? You tried to work 3 tight ends in the last 2 seasons. And again, you never essentially got the return of that investment with a player like Njoku, what you had paid Hooper, the draft selection of Bryant. Are you now saying with the 2 of them, you can do away? So do you get a situation, maybe, we're looking for maybe David Njoku to hit that 50 reception mark. Maybe you can get Harrison Bryant to that 30 reception, 350, 375, 400. The ability's there. Harrison Bryant will continue to need to work on his blocking. I think one of the things with Harrison Bryant is his build. I just don't know how much more bulk you can get on that. He's definitely got like a basketball player's type of build to him. And that's one of those things. Look, you can go to the gym every day. You can go in the morning, you can go at night. Some bodies just kind of like hit a max at what you can actually, carry on it. And he's always going to be a guy who's maybe more of a bigger wide receiver playing tight end. And that's certainly okay, as long as he can do the blocking that's asked of him. But I think this is, for the Browns, this is the ultimate correction of looking at the last 2 years, realizing how many opportunities they gave Austin Hooper when, and again, they hadn't drafted Harrison Bryant yet, hadn't really seen David Njoku firsthand yet. So they went out and got what they thought was a safe commodity. And, of course, with Austin Hooper. But now you look at this, and Njoku is that player they have worked with. They have groomed to be this player that they think can be a top tight end in this game. Harrison Bryant, year 3 is normally a big year for tight ends as they get more comfortable in the NFL. So I think the Browns here are understanding that, the hard work and the diligence done by these 2 guys is going to pay bigger dividends than the check they wrote to Austin Hooper. And I kind of got to agree with it because, Austin Hooper's play over the last couple of years, it definitely left everybody wanting more. And it was kind of like, well, the man came here, picked up the check, but it looks like he left his game back in Atlanta.
He left his game, his athleticism, his moves, his ankles, his lower body. My goodness, this man, all he did is just come in here. He catch 5-yard button hooks and fall down. I'm like, are you sliding? Are you, what do you, I didn't know you were Josh McCown. I was like, we traded, we just gave Josh McCown, who came back as tight end, a bag of money. I said, bro, he got to go. He got to go, bro. And I think they made that decision too. And it's like, listen, we can at least have Bryant out here and do something. And in Njoku, we got something. But I think, and that's another big reason too. People freak out about the money that they gave David Njoku, but they were already giving Austin Hooper all that bread. They was giving him all the big bag, and they said, all right, well, let's just take that away from him, split it up a little bit, and give it to David Njoku. And by the way, all of the guaranteed money is gone after like the second year anyway. So let's be clear. Like if David Njoku comes out and takes down his ankles, guess what? They could get rid of him. They can say, hey, we're gonna move on, just like they did from Austin Hooper. So no harm, no foul.
Indeed. And I'm actually looking forward to this because I think that was one thing that got frustrating to watch with this tight end room. Once we kind of realized that Austin Hooper, wasn't the player they thought they signed, was this, you kind of always felt like, man, we're throwing the ball to Austin Hooper. I really wish, these plays were being drawn up for David Njoku or Harrison Bryant, and see where these kids can possibly take us. Going to continue here. We're going to look at the rest of the tight end room. Is there much there? I got to be honest. There's some great names in this tight end room, man. I mean, these guys are rocking some solid A+ names. We'll see if there's anybody in there that can maybe actually be a contributor here in a possible third tight end role for Coach Kevin Stefanski in 2022. Garrett Bush, Jeff Lloyd, the latest Locked On Browns. From the people who invented Healthy and Tasty comes the latest gift to your taste buds. You've probably tried the amazing Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar, but guess what? Your friends at Built have given Coconut Brownie Chunk the puff treatment. That's right, the Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Bar flavor you love in a delicious, chewy marshmallow covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. But stop drooling and listen. They're good for you. Low in calorie, low in sugar, high in protein, and all delicious. Coconut Brownie Chunk Puffs are only here for a limited time. Go to Built.com right now to make sure you do not miss out. They are going fast because they taste amazing. All the Built Bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Also, something that tastes good and is good for you. The best part about Built Puffs is, of course, they taste amazing, but you can enjoy them guilt-free because they are good for you. They are the perfect treat, perfect when you've got a craving or you need to satisfy your sweet tooth, or if you need a quick snack. They are an excellent source of protein. Delicious coconut, rich, sweet, brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Get to Built.com to order your box of Coconut Brownie Chunk Built Puffs right now. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. G. Bush in the building. Jeff Lloyd here as well. Continue to support us all across the Locked On Browns podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, make sure you continue to download those. 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated. And we want to just salute everybody out here for making us really, really, really one of the top growing Locked On podcasts out here. Continue to hit that notification bell so you don't even got to wait till we post it on YouTube. We make it easy for you. We're going to post it on YouTube. We're going to post it on Twitter. We're going to make sure we put that out there on Facebook so guys can see it. So, our Locked On Browns podcast is everywhere, but continue to hit that notification bell. So guess what? It just comes right to your phone. It says, yo, Jeff, those pretty faces, Jeff's face and G. Bush's faces, they ready to go to talk about your Cleveland Browns, and we doing it every single day here. So continue to support us as well. Now, Jeff, this has been a philosophical thing that we've talked about, and I'm interested in seeing how it's going to go. That's why I love preseason, right? What is this going to be? Kevin Stefanski has been kind of tied at the hip to his 3 tight end, stuff. He's been tied at the hip in terms of people, kind of typecasting him a little bit, that he loves to use fullbacks. He loves to use tight ends, the 12, 13 personnel, 2 to 3 tight ends. And if guys don't know out there, we'll do a quick little thing for you, get you abreast to what's going on. If you say 12 or 13 personnel or 11 personnel, people use the terminology loosely, but for people that may not know and may not get into the weeds and the minutia of what football is, 12 personnel, you always take the first number, and it denotes how many running backs are in your backfield, right? So if it's 12, that means there's one running back, and then the last number coincides with how many tight ends you got on the field. So you got one running back, two tight ends. If it's 13 personnel, one running back, three tight ends. 11 personnel, you got one running back, one tight end. And then vice versa, you can have a 22 series. All right. So think goal line packages. 22 is two running backs, two backs, and we classify the fullback as a running back. Two fullbacks, and the tailback, that's two. And then you get to your tight ends, that's another two. So 22 personnel usually is what you're doing on goal lines and so forth. So it's just a quick little lesson for you guys out there, that football 101 type stuff. Kevin Stefanski loves that type of stuff. And I'm not sure if they're going to have someone stepping up. Now, they do have a couple of names, that guys that are intriguing. They even got one of the basketball players, right? They got somebody that just only hoops, right? And he's never really played basketball. I mean, I'm interested in seeing what he'll bring to the table. But Jeff, do you think this year there'll be as much of a 12, 13 personnel, or will they be more of your jet motion? Because they got guys, they got the Jakeem Grants, they got the Anthony Schwartz, they got guys like that can run the jet sweep game. Do you think there'll be more of that in the shotgun, or do you think you'll still see a lot of three tight end sets?
Where it's interesting, Garrett, because you talk about this, over the last few years, fullback was an important part of what they did. Andy Janovich here is your starting fullback for 2 years. Johnny Stanton played, in some incidents when Janovich was not available. Only one on the roster right now is Johnny Stanton. You look at this tight end room, last 2 years, it was Austin Hooper, it was David Njoku, it was Harrison Bryant. You've moved on from Austin Hooper. You look right now, who is the third tight end? I guess it's Millard Forrestall. He's the only one with some experience, former player at Alabama. Blocking is kind of there. Hasn't really got much of an opportunity as a wide receiver. As a receiver, for Coach Stefanski. But then you get to the rest of it, and, it's definitely just a group of guys with, pretty much some great names. Nakia Griffin-Stewart, played at Rutgers, played at Pitt. He's had stints in the NFL on practice squads. He's only played in one NFL game. I'm pretty sure that was in 2020. So not a guy that you really know much about. Zaire Mitchell-Payton, again, these guys, fantastic names. We're talking presidential type names with these dudes. Small player. Another player, he went to Florida Atlantic to close out his career, had 9 receptions in his final collegiate season last year. Has an athletic body build to him, was a basketball player, in his youth, in his prep years in high school. But again, this is a guy who looks like probably destined for the practice squad. You talk about Marcos Santos Silva, the former Texas Tech college basketball player. It's really, really hard to believe that this guy who was brought in, I guess it was maybe March or so, that this guy in, essentially 6 months is going to be NFL ready. You like the idea, you like the possibility of what this young man could bring as a project, certainly maybe a practice squad guy somewhere down the line, but there's a lot of time to develop, man. And you just don't go from playing college basketball to playing NFL tight end in 6 months. It just don't work that way. You got to be the rarest of the rare of, talented athletes in this world. So many nuances that, go into playing football, into playing the tight end position, that this young man doesn't have. So it makes you wonder a couple of things. Are the Browns in the market somewhere along the line for a veteran tight end? Is this something that maybe is going to happen around Labor Day weekend? Are the Browns going to see the cuts and say, oh, you know what? This guy, great blocker, don't need him to do much receiving. We're going to bring him in here. Because this room, which was a heavily 3 tight end room for the past 2 seasons, you've got 2. And then after that, I don't really necessarily know what you got. Again, Forrestall looked like he would have the opportunity, has some experience, did play for this team last year. But you do look like there's maybe a changing of the guard here and a shifting in the Coach Stefanski theory as far as fullback was big, a lot of tight ends was big. Looks like maybe there's a shift going away from that, Garrett. And, as far as maybe the involvement within the passing game itself, it's going to be a little bit more wide receiver based, or you are going to take advantage of the fact that you have players out of the backfield like Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnson. Nick Chubb has certainly improved in the receiving game. We certainly know Demetric Felton and get involved in the passing game. It looks like there might be a little involvement. And to coach's credit, sometimes you got to adapt. And, if he didn't get all that he felt he could get out of the tight end position, if it was the personnel or maybe it was his system himself, you got to tweak things. And it looks like there's a possibility here. Coach Stefanski is tweaking with what some of the things that he's been most comfortable with in offenses he's been a part of in his time in the NFL.
Guaranteed. I definitely like what you said. It's about adapting. The Browns have a lot of different guys with a lot of different skill set, but the cool thing about it is all those guys can catch the football. You got Kareem Hunt, who might be one of your best pass catchers in the passing game. Nick Chubb can catch the ball. We've seen him catch the ball well over his first 2 years. And so you got those guys and guys you can utilize, and you can utilize those guys out of the backfield. We've been wanting to see a little bit of the 21 personnel. I love 21 personnel. It's 2 running backs in the backfield and shotgun with you got one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Look at that backfield. Look what you can run with that 21 personnel, split backs behind Deshaun Watson. You got Kareem Hunt flanked to the right. You got your boy Nick Chubb flanked to the left. You can run everything off that. You got screen game available, RPOs available, just regular stretch running plays, inside zone, split zone. Man, there's so much you can run with that. It's just so exciting. So I'd love to see some 21 personnel, 2 running backs back there, David Njoku maybe blanked out, and you still got Amari Cooper. And then you still have Donovan Peoples-Jones. You got a nice balance out there. So I'm looking forward to seeing the evolution of the tight end game, not just under center, but in the shotgun as well.
Yeah, definitely, some changes here. And, look, a lot of this thought process probably comes along with thinking, and knowing what you have in Deshaun Watson whenever you get him to be, the future at the quarterback position here. You made this move, obviously. You think the world of Deshaun Watson's on-field ability, and you're trying to tailor your offense to what suits your new quarterback better. Deshaun Watson, I mean, you throw for almost 5,000 yards in this league. We don't need to necessarily throw 3 tight end screens per week. You kind of wasting some of the the bullets in the gun, so to speak, for Deshaun Watson. If there's the opportunity, this game goes more vertical. I mean, I'm excited. I want to see it. I love the way they constructed the wide receiver room. I think by, moving on from Austin Hooper, this may be something where, less could equal more out of the tight end position. Because I think, and as I said, a lot of times over the last season and a half, it was, we're throwing the ball to Austin Hooper over here. I'd really like to see, Bryant get more involved or give these opportunities to the much better athlete who's not going to trip over his own feet after 3 yards and David Njoku. So we got the ton here today. Training camp preview has been continuing. You tight end room today. And again, this is, some adaptation. Looks like, some theories and some things that Coach Stefanski has been, firm on the way he's doing business on the offensive side of the ball the last couple of years. Looks like he's maybe wavering a little bit, changing, maybe reprioritizing some things on the offensive side of the ball. So just continue here, giving you guys the best coverage we can as far as, getting you ready for training camp. Browns rookies about to be in the building from Brad Stainbrook, Perrion Winfrey, the last to get that pen to paper. So that is handled. I don't know why everybody was so worried. But yes, Perrion Winfrey signed, ready to go. He is Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 to 1, Monday through Friday on YouTube. The Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan, Saturdays. With the summer here, a little more time off for some of your local DJs, Garrett and Barbershop. A little more hours over at 92.3, so be on the lookout for that as well. Make sure you're following at GBush91. Me personally, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Show itself, Locked On Browns, follow back account. DMs are always open. We always appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every day. Whether it is your favorite podcast platform, whether it is YouTube, make sure you're following, subscribe to the show, ratings, reviews, likes, all that good stuff here. Again, none of this happens without any of you. So with all that being said, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB. Let's go Browns.